I'm going to spend $50 billion to create 51% of the mining capacity in the world, and I'm going to steal all the Bitcoin in the world and take down the Western free.
Well-known financial analyst Jim Rickards, who very actively promotes gold, has tried really slamming Bitcoin with all sorts of arguments. He wants to promote gold. He realizes that Bitcoin is his major competition, is gold's major competition. And so he wants to try to downplay everything about Bitcoin. What we will do here is take apart his arguments against Bitcoin.
But the best known are going to fail. When I say fail, they're going to, Bitcoin might have a $200 value as a token for criminals. I think criminals and terrorists might find a use case at about $200 per Bitcoin, but they're basically not going to be anywhere near where they are.
This is a ridiculous point from Rickards. He's basically trying to make the case that the only potential value in Bitcoin is to terrorists and criminals, and that no one else has any use for it, so its value will drop to $200. First up, Bitcoin has got a transparent blockchain. There are many cryptocurrencies that use anonymous blockchains, so criminals would far rather use that. Now, in the early days, I might have understood a proposition that, Bitcoin was a haven for terrorists and criminals. Well, the likes of Chainalysis have said that only 1% of the activity on Bitcoin, or less than 1%, is for nefarious means, criminal means. And here's the reality. You've got nation states, including the United States, that have got Bitcoin reserves. You've got the likes of PayPal, which authorize payments using Bitcoin. You have got ETFs from the likes of BlackRock and Fidelity, and you also have the likes of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac having been instructed to use Bitcoin as collateral. So this is not some fly-by-night scheme that's only going to be used by criminals and terrorists. This is a ridiculous point brought up by Rickards.
The energy usage to solve the problem and make the proof of work in Bitcoin is now greater than the annual energy output of Ireland. Imagine taking all the electricity used in Ireland in a year, and that's how much we have to use to crunch numbers. By the way, every applied mathematician will tell you that prime factoring is a trivial problem. It's like an uninteresting problem. But it takes a lot of computing power to do it because the numbers are so big and the possibilities are so great. So we're just wasting the entire electrical usage of Ireland. In a few years, it's going to be the entire electrical usage of Japan. Who in this room thinks that governments are going to allow Bitcoin miners to use as much electricity in a year as the entire country of Japan, the third largest economy in the world? That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not very green. It's completely wasteful. In other words, it can't happen. So that's why I say it's not sustainable. It's going to hit a wall.
Here, Rickards has yet another fanciful and stupid rationale for why Bitcoin will fail. Yes, Bitcoin uses a lot of electricity, the reason being that it has a proof of work concept, which conversely makes it very robust and difficult to try to attack and corrupt. Now, Ricard says that, countries are not going to allow that. Well, which country? There are a whole variety of countries in the world, over 200 of them. And how much electricity will they allow to be used? Where they're going to cut the line? And is each country going to have a different mark for which they cut? This is a stupid proposition. Basically, as long as people will pay for it, the electricity will be generated. Now, Rickard seems to have a real bee in his bonnet about the amount of electricity that Bitcoin uses, but he's very much in the gold area. He loves gold as the store of value. But you don't hear too much criticism from him about the environmental impacts of gold mining and processing. It's all incredibly one sided. And It's because Rickards is such a gold aficionado and he's promoting gold.
Non-regulated, I don't have to remind you of all the frauds, new ones popping up every day. It's not just exchanges. Exchanges are, how do exchanges work? I want to go to a Bitcoin exchange. Well, you got to go in, you got to open an account, just like Merrill Lynch or Charles Schwab, right? So, or Toronto Dominion. So you go, you give me your name, your address, your social security number, your bank wire information, give them all that information, and then send them dollars, and they say, okay, you got some Bitcoin, here's your confirmation. Really? How do I know you didn't just take my dollars and send me a phony baloney confirmation? How do I know you're not, a Ponzi? You're using new money to pay off the old money. How do I know you're not Bernie Madoff with a computer engineering degree? How do I know you're not a bucket shop? How do I know any of those things? The answer is you don't.
Listen to the contradictions here. He was saying earlier on, this is only a network for criminals and terrorists, and that's the only reason. Now he's talking about, well, you've got to give all your information to the exchanges to get your Bitcoin. Well, which is it? Are criminals going to be giving social security numbers and all that detail to exchanges to get Bitcoin? Now, the other point is, he says, you don't know whether you got the Bitcoin or not. Well, yes, you do. You can actually get this Bitcoin sent to a cold wallet. You know that Bitcoin has arrived. You just have to make sure that you're going to use a legitimate exchange. Just like with all sorts of businesses, you ensure that you're using a business that is trusted and that has got a reputation. He is just looking desperately for anything to throw at Bitcoin simply because he realizes that as a store of value, Bitcoin is superior to gold and Bitcoin is the competition for his beloved gold that he pushes.
The reason, by the way, gold is such a good form of money is that it grows slowly. It grows at about the tempo of world growth. It grows at about the tempo of population growth, not exactly, but close enough that it's the best form of money anyone's ever discovered. But the problem with Bitcoin, when you hit a hard stop, which they will, and the economy keeps growing, but you want to back it with Bitcoin, so here's your money supply and here's your economy, that's inherently deflationary, right? Because each Bitcoin's got to support more and more growth, meaning your Bitcoin is worth more in theory, but the problem is you never get there. Why? Because if you have a deflationary currency, there's no bond market. The money supply grows based on credit, based on loans, based on various forms of borrowing. The money supply is just a foundation, and the economy grows with credit. Nobody wants to borrow in a form of money that's going to be more expensive when you pay it back. I'm not talking about interest. That's always part of the equation. I'm saying the money itself is worth more when you have to pay back the loan. No one's going to borrow on that loan, therefore no bond market, therefore no viable form of money. So these are all the reasons why this is going to hit the wall.
And here we come to the crux of it with Rickards gold. Gold's the best money that's ever been invented and ever discovered. This is what his raison d'etre for the entire criticism of Bitcoin is. And he talks about it being deflationary, etc. This is precisely the strength of it. Fiat currency, they just keep pumping it out and pumping it out. Inflation. Wouldn't you like to have an asset where what you hold is buying more and more all the time? The problem with bonds is that they're junk. They're not really worth anything. When you take inflation into account, and particularly when you take in debasement, which is the amount of money that's pumped in as well as CPI inflation. So, no, Jim, this is not a good thing for fiat currency, and this is why Bitcoin is such a strong currency to come.
I'm going to spend $50 billion to create 51% of the mining capacity in the world, and I'm going to steal all the Bitcoin in the world and take down the Western.
Now, let's ignore his actual numbers here of $50 billion to buy 51% of Bitcoin. This was obviously done a few years ago. But here's the reality. If someone is going to spend so much money to get 51% of Bitcoin, why are they going to do that? Are they really going to want to then junk the money that they've put into Bitcoin? The reality is they will want to be wanting a greater return. They will be wanting Bitcoin to go up, not to go down. Yet another silly argument from Jim.